virtual events. This session will be from the Center for Students with Disabilities with Mr. Estrada and the Writing Center from Ms. Salinas and Ms. Rodriguez. The session will be recorded so that you may come back to it later if you need, and so others who may have missed out on today's event will be able to come back and watch it. This event will provide the handle passport points, and the code will be posted on the chat towards the end of the session. So now at this time, please mute your mics for the best sound experience. Otherwise, the feedback could interfere with the information that we'll be sharing today. And without further ado, I'll pass it on to Mr. Estrada so that he can begin.
Thank you. Thank you. Just quick mic check. I just want to be sure that everybody can hear me. If I can get a thumbs up.
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay, cool, great. Thank you so much. Well, my name is John. Thank you for the introduction. I represent the Center for Students with Disabilities here at El Paso Community College. I do recruitment, transition, and training for our program. I'm going to explain our support services today, and I'll get right into it. So who is eligible to receive services through our program, Center for Students with Disabilities? Any EPCC student who identifies with a disability, it being either a permanent or temporary disability, can receive services through our program. An example of a permanent disability may be if some individual was born with a hearing impairment or a learning disability, and they're going to be dealing with that for their life. An example of a temporary disability may be if a student, let's say, is in a car accident and they break their hand or arm and they cannot write for themselves. They are a student here at EPCC and they broke their arm, and so they will be in a cast for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, and so that's a temporary disability. So we can provide services for both. The disability can be a cognitive or learning disability, like I mentioned, or it can be a physical disability. We cover all types of disabilities with our program. If I go back really quickly, I'm sorry. The last sentence there, students must self-identify and provide documentation of their disability to us in order to receive services. So if any students would like to receive a service with our department, they would have to either visit with us physically in person at one of our offices at one of the 5 EPCC campuses. They can also call us and they can also email us. Regardless, the student needs to self-identify with us and let us know that they would like to receive a service. Then that student also needs to provide documentation of a disability that proves that there is a need for a service. There is a difference between accommodations at the high school level as opposed to modifications at the high school level as opposed to accommodations here at the college level. So if there is a student who was previously receiving services at the high school level, they were receiving modifications. At the college level or the post-secondary level, the students will receive accommodations. And that's based off of the laws. The students here at the college are covered by ADA law, Americans with Disabilities Act. And the students at the high schools and middle schools, they are covered by the IDEA Act, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So just for those students who have received services in the past at their high school level, they will be different here at the college level. And if you need more information about that, you can speak to one of our counselors. The types of disability documentation that we need in order to prove or to approve of the services include an ARD, an IEP, a 504 plan, or a diagnosis. This diagnosis can come from a medical doctor, a diagnostician, a psychologist, somebody with the professional. Yes, true. So the documentation. If I'm sorry, referring to the question in the chat box, the question refers to the documentation that we need. If the student does not have that documentation when they first enter into our office or when they first self-identify, that's okay. That student can still speak to one of our counselors, and so that we can get the process going so we can approve of the services for the student. But that student would then have to come back with that documentation within the semester. We would prefer, as soon as possible. But if the student has difficulties obtaining that information, we understand that. So as long as the student can provide the documentation within the semester that they do request the services, that is okay. And if anybody else has any other questions, please go ahead and type that into the chat box. Thank you for that clarification. How old is the documentation allowed to be? The documentation, um, I'm not quite sure if there's a time limit. It's a little tricky sometimes with like the high schools, and if we have a student that's coming right out of a high school, the documentation that they have, it may be from within the last year, which is great. But then we have students that wait a couple of years before they come back to school. And so if they have something that refers to the ARD or the IEP that's at least within the last 5 years, that is fine. There are other situations where the documentation is unnecessary in the sense that if a student comes in and if they have an obvious physical disability that does not require the documentation, then in those cases, then we can forego the need for documentation. The counselor may have the student come back with like a doctor's letter or something if they do not have access to another type of documentation. Um, but yes, if there's any documentation from any professional, that's what we prefer for the approval of services. Um, So as far as the steps for the student to self-identify with our program, like I'm saying, yes, the first thing they need to self-identify. They need to step into our office and let us know that they would like a service. Um, that student should bring in that documentation as well. At that time, when the student comes into our office, we will have that student complete what is called an intake form. That intake form is just it's internal. It's where we collect information from the student so that we can create a file for them and so that we can have some contact information for that student, just in case we need to, like I said, and just in case we need to contact them or reschedule an appointment. Once the student has completed that intake form, they will be scheduled to meet with one of our counselors. We do have a counselor at each of the 5 campuses. They do rotate sometimes, so there may be days when a counselor is not present at one of the campuses, but that's why you can schedule. You can schedule your appointment to speak with one of our counselors in case you do need to speak to one of them. Once you do sit down with the counselor, you will speak to the counselor about your disability, how it affects you in the classroom and outside of the classroom, and the counselor will also review the documentation that you all provide. And in so doing, the counselor will be able to make the best recommendations for the types of services that we can provide to them. None of our accommodations are retroactive. What that means is that what that means is that the student should request services at the beginning of the semester, no matter what. If they feel that they need the help, they should ask for the help as soon as possible. So if a student decides to not come in at the beginning of the semester and they're taking their classes and they take one class where they take one test and they fail that test, they get a low grade or low score on that test. And if the student knows that they could have done better if they had had extra time to take the test, then okay, yes, that student can come and request for extra time with us, but it'll be from that moment onward. We cannot have the student retake a test that they already took with extra time to get a better grade. The scores and the grades that the students earn in your classes, those are the scores that you're going to keep, regardless of the accommodation or not. So, like I'm saying, the best thing to do is for the student to come in before the semester even begins, or at the very beginning of the semester, to request those services, just so that we can, so just that there we won't have any issues. But let me go back to that. So if a student decides to come in right before finals to ask for extra time for their finals, that is fine. We can approve of services for extra time for testing right before finals. But once again, the student needs to come in and request that. We won't be able to have the student, like I said, get extra time for previous tests or assignments that they already took and submitted. The school abides by the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, which means that all information that is provided to us by the student will be kept confidential. We will not release any of that information to any tutors, instructors, staff, anybody here at the school. Not even the parents of the students can request any information from their own children. That child, that son or daughter, if they are a student here, they would actually have to give permission for their parents to access their information. Mm, So we do have a center for students with disabilities at every single EPCC campus. So all of the accommodations and services that I'm about to describe, and all the technologies that we have as well, we can provide those at all of the different EPCC campuses. And so virtually, we can provide services virtually if needed. And I'll describe some of those services right now. It gets a little tricky sometimes with certain services, but we can still find a way to accommodate the student as needed. So some of the services that we provide include note taking and scribing services. So if the student has difficulties focusing in the classroom or listening to the lecture, we can provide a note taker, somebody who would go to the classroom and take notes for that student. Scribing is when we provide a writer, somebody who can write for the student. The example that I mentioned earlier, the student with a broken arm or a broken hand, if they cannot write for themselves, well, they can come in and they can request a scribe for their classrooms. So that way, when the student is in the classroom, they are still present. If they cannot write, the scribe will write for them. So if they have an in-class assignment or if they need to write down a paragraph or something, then the scribe can do that for that student. We do have technological options for this as well. Here I have a Glean, but it just recently changed. Glean is now Genio Notes. So this is technology. We can provide an app to students so that they can record their class sessions, the audio for the class sessions, and then the app will convert that audio into a written transcript, sort of like a Word document. And so when the students are studying, they can both listen to the recording of the lecture and then also read along as need be, just for a study tool. We also provide sign language interpretation as needed. We do send teams of interpreters to various classrooms so that they can sit down and interpret for students who are hard of hearing or who may be deaf. We also provide tutoring services. Our tutoring services can be done either in person or virtually. So the in-person tutoring, that would be either scheduled or it can be on a walk-in basis. The same with the online tutoring, with the virtual tutoring. If you need to speak to one, if you need to work with one of our tutors, you can just use Blackboard, just how we are using Blackboard right now to meet with your tutor. And that can be either on a scheduled basis or on a walk-in basis. And once again, those tutoring services are available through our office. You would have to come into our office to request those services. We also provide reader services. In some cases, there are students who need help reading a block of text or having some text read to them. And so we can do that. We can either do that here in the office or we can send staff to a classroom to read for that student, whatever it is that they need to read. We have our counselors. We typically have two counselors here at the Via Verde campus at any given moment. And then some of these counselors rotate between Northwest Campus and the Rio Grande campus as well. And then we have a part-time counselor out at the Mission del Paso campus. Our counselors can help with advisement, with registration. They can also, if the student is in a moment of crisis and if they need to speak to one of our counselors, they can do so with them as well. One of our biggest accommodations is testing. And for that, we provide extra time for testing. We can provide a reader and a writer or a scribe for the student as well. So when the student comes in to take the test with us, they can get the extra time. And then our testing specialist, they can both read the material or the quiz, the test out to the student. And then that testing specialist will also write down any answers that the student provides. All of the answers will be verbatim, meaning that whatever it is that the student is saying will be exactly what the testing specialist, will write down. I'm sorry, I'm going to go back really quickly. And so for our testing accommodations as well, we do provide a quiet, distraction-free area for our students in order to take their tests. And so if they are testing with us at any given moment, they might be in the testing room with us by themselves taking their test, or there may be 2 or 3 other students there taking the test as well. But it'll be quiet, it'll be controlled, and distraction free. We also offer different types of technology that the students can use inside the classroom and outside of the classroom. I did mention the Genio Notes. We also have visual magnifiers. We also have listening devices. We have programs that the students can use on their laptops or the computers in our computer lab. We have programs such as text to speech and speech to text programs. We have CCTVs. We have a brailler. We have had students who have had visual impairments in the past come in who have had to do work on a brailler. And so we do have braillers and embossers and other types of technology as well. Our program, Center for Students with Disabilities, we do understand that there are some students who require a service animal. And so these service animals, they can be here on the campus or any EPCC campus with the student that they are with. That service animal they're trained to do certain things, and so we understand that some students need these trained animals. They are protected by law. Once again, they are an extension of the individual that they are with. So we cannot ask if there are only a couple of things that we can ask about these service animals. One, if they are a service animal. And for the most part, they will have an identifying vest or a patch on their a vest that reads that they are a service animal, just like in the image here. Um, we do not keep a registry. We do not keep track of these animals. But if one of these animals does cause a disturbance on the campus, if they start barking in the classroom, if they bite someone, then the police department here on campus can ask to have that animal removed or that service animal removed. For the most part, these are trained animals, and so they are trained not to do those behaviors. And the types of animals that we recognize are dogs and miniature ponies. So I have not seen a miniature pony here on campus yet, but that doesn't say that, we might not get one in the future. So once again, remember that with our program, the student needs to self-identify with us. They need to let us know that they would like to receive a service, that they would like to receive an accommodation. They also need to bring in the documentation that identifies that there is a disability. Once the student steps into our office, we'll have them fill out an intake form. We will also schedule an appointment with one of our counselors so that they can sit down with them and discuss their disability. And then just as a reminder that none of our accommodations are retroactive and services should be requested before the start of every semester. Like I mentioned, we do have an office at every single EPCC campus. Here we have the telephone numbers for our different offices. If you would like to take a screenshot of this slide right here, do so now. As they have mentioned, this TVE is being recorded, so you can always come back and view the information again. How often do you, let me go to the questions, sorry. So the questions are, how often do students have to update documentation? Okay, so if a student is sure that they are going to be receiving services with our program and they're going to be here at EPCC for a year and a half, 2 years, the documentation just needs to be provided once. The student would have to come in at the beginning of every semester, though, to request services. So just because the student came in one time and presented the documentation to us that one time, yes, we can begin the services, we can approve of the services, but the services, they have to be requested at the beginning of every semester. They're not just going to carry over from one semester to the next. And the reason being is that there are times when students, they do not return to school. They don't come back to EPCC. They drop classes, or they move to another state, or maybe they feel that they do not need our services anymore. So, and those are all valid reasons. So that is why the students should request for services at the beginning of every semester, but they do need to provide the documentation at least once. Yes, and you can request online, yes, at the beginning of every semester. So let's say that the student comes in their very first time with us. They bring in the documentation, they sit down with the counselor, they get the services approved, and there they go. They continue with their semester and they're getting their services. Okay, great. The student completes that semester, they break, and then they come back the next semester. And so that student, if they want to request services again, they can do so virtually. You do not have to come back into our office. You could do it virtually or over the phone. So we will have, just like I mentioned, we have that intake form where we gather the information from the students. That's us creating a file for the students. And so we will have the students' information on file. And so our counselors will just have to go back, take a look at that file again, see what services and accommodations they were getting in the past. If the student wants to drop an accommodation and add an accommodation, they can do so when they contact the counselor virtually or over the phone. And I should have included the virtual link here. That's a note for me. I'll be sure to include the virtual link for next time. Is there a limit to how many accommodations a student can receive? No, there is no limit. All of our services are free. The student can enjoy all of the different services. If the student wants a note taker, if they want a tutor, if they want to come in and use the technology in our lab and they want extra time for testing, they can get every single one of those accommodations. Now, the student can pick and choose what they want. If the student only wants the testing services, if they do not need tutoring, if they do not need a note taker, if they do not need the technology, if they just want extra time for testing, yes, the student can choose that. They can only use, they can choose just that one service. So yes, the student can pick and choose which services they want to receive, and there is no limit. Are there any questions?
That looks like all the questions we had. If there's any more, of course, feel free to add them to the chat. But if not, I'll go ahead and I'll share the Writing Center's presentation and hand it over to them. Thank you, Mr. Estrada.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. We appreciate it. My name is Nemesis Rodriguez, and today I will be starting off the presentation on behalf of Valle Verde's Writing Center. Just a really quick mic check. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Today I am also joined by my peer Soshi, so she would be taking over halfway through the presentation, okay? Hmm. So, our table of contents for today will include about us, all of the writing centers, um, a breakdown of a session, the virtual visits, the virtual resources. We will also be talking about Grammar EDU, as well as our visits in person, our resources, our other locations, frequently asked questions, and way to contact us, as well as our social media. So, first and foremost, what is the Writing Center? Our sessions are collaborative, and we do hope to help develop student skills such as their writing, their editing, and their reading, of course. We help in all stages of the writing process. It doesn't have to be a completed essay. You don't have to have an outline if you want to come and visit us and start maybe brainstorming. A lot of students also like to kind of ask questions about Blackboard itself too. Sometimes students are not sure how to submit their assignments, and of course we can help with that. Or sometimes they don't really know what the assignment is asking, right? So we can also help with that as well. The understanding the prompts, it's important to know all of the requirements such as page length. Is your instructor asking for a specific format such as MLA, APA, Chicago, right? And from there, we can definitely start working on a draft together. If you already have a draft ready to go, we can work on it. We can edit, we can revise. We also check for grammar, right? So let's say that maybe there are some concerns regarding your sentences, maybe the structure, maybe your paragraphs. Perhaps you would like for somebody to revise that conclusion to see if it works well within the essay, or maybe we just want to start again with that thesis statement, right? You can always come to one of us. Our MLA, APA, and Chicago citations as well. Sometimes students don't really know what that means. Sometimes you might have an idea what it is, or your instructor is kind of asking for a cover page, but then they're asking for page numbers, and it can create some confusion, right? So the Writing Center is always welcome to you all, so you can come and ask these questions. Um, do you have to be an EPCC student to get help? Actually, this is a great thing, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this further into the presentation, but this is open to the community. So you do not have to be an EPCC student. You can always come in, tell your mom, a friend, perhaps you have a personal project that you would like to work on, and all of us here are more than happy to help, and we're all qualified. So, yes, this also includes all types of writing, right? As I was saying, if you have that book, perhaps, maybe some script writing, maybe some, I've had students come in helping, needing help with scripts for their episodes of the movie that they hope to film one day, their short films. It's really fun. And this is including but not limited to class assignments as well. Perhaps you have a job that you're interested in and you want to get your resume looked at. Perhaps you took a break from school and you're coming back after a while, right? And there are those gaps. We can help you fill in those gaps. Job application, similarly to the resume, if perhaps you're like, oh, well, I don't have any type of experience related to that particular job, then we can help you cater that resume towards that specific experience, right? Scholarships as well. If there is something within the scholarship itself that requires writing, write the essays, we are here to help. And of course, creative writing. This can include anywhere between poetry to creative nonfiction, perhaps, as I keep mentioning, script writing that tends to be really popular with our students. We are more than happy to help you all. And we also work with students to help them develop their reading skills. So let's continue. We recommend that students do not show up right before class, right? So if you just say, oh, well, hi, I only have 15 minutes, that puts a lot of pressure on the tutor, right, as well as yourselves. We will probably not have a very progressive and good workshop, right? A little tutor session. So it's better to come at least maybe an hour or so before you have to get to class, right? Because the tutoring sessions can last anywhere between 15 to 30 minutes, depending on how packed the center is, depending on how many tutors are available, and all of that, right? Some instructors will require you for the student to come to the writing center either as part of the assignment or they might be offering extra credit, right? Regardless of that, if you request, you can receive a verification form. Our really friendly and really amazing front desk staff and receptionists will be more than happy to help you with that. More information on that in our further slides as well. And you will receive verification of your visit for both in-person and virtual sessions. But as a disclaimer though, we are not an editing service, and even though it's a little cropped at the bottom, we also are not we only do your homework type of service, right? You are here to have a collaborative, session with a tutor. So let's now talk about these sessions, right? What are they? How do they work? Well, first, upon arrival, you'll be greeted and asked for your EPCC ID number and the class you are visiting for, right? Again, this is open to the community, but it follows a similar process, right? And our front desk staff, they will greet you once you get that little verification form. They will fill that part out for you. Two, when you get paired up with a tutor, they will ask you a couple of questions to understand how we can best assist you all, right? Again, the tutor will be filling out this verification forms alongside you. So that means that there will be a couple of questions, and the student will be responsible for answering number one before the session starts. This is a very simple question. I usually just ask the student, what are you here for? Is there something specific that you would like for the tutor to keep in mind during the session and how we can help you with that? And then number two, it would just ask a question such as like, oh, okay, well, now that we have worked with the tutor, what is something that you plan on improving or would like to work on the second draft of this assignment, right? And then number three, after reviewing your work, the tutor will offer you suggestions that you can apply to your work, right? Again, this is a collaborative session, which means that you're receiving feedback at the peer-to-peer level. We are not the instructors. We are not here to grade your assignments or to do them for you, but instead we're here to give you those suggestions that may or may not be useful to you, right? So if there is a suggestion that you're like, oh, well, maybe that is not so what I was trying to do here, right? That is completely fine. Let the tutor know and we could work um, with something else perhaps, right? Or we can just restart, or you yourself can say, wow, this session was so awesome that I felt inspired to just write something completely different, right? And yeah, so then for number four, if anything remains unclear, you can ask questions about the feedback too, right? You will not be hurting our feelings. We will not be offended if a suggestion does not make sense or you perhaps do not want to take it. Again, it's a collaborative session. We are here to help you in the way that you feel fits best for you. And I did see that there was another questions. Yes, so if you're a community member, then you will just sign in with your phone number, right? Something that we can use to contact you again. So then now let's talk about our virtual centers, right? So you go to our website, which is epcc.edu/services/writing center. Our availability is pretty open, right? We are available on Blackboard from Monday 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. as well as Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. However, on Friday we are available also 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturday to 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. That's where our availability will change, and these services are only provided virtually, okay, for Saturday. And upon our virtual sessions, we also have virtual resources. This includes the handouts, which my peer will talk about later on in the session as well. These are the same as the handouts that we have in person as PDFs. These are the two ways that you can access them, either through our website, which I talked about previously, or through the EPCC library. Again, these are PDFs that were created by our tutors, which are meant to help you. So if you want this as a virtual PDF, or if you stop by any of the centers to receive a physical copy, they are here to help you. We also have a YouTube playlist, which again, the tutors work really hard for, so I definitely recommend you check out, especially too if you're somebody that perhaps likes other types of mediums when working or when being assisted. Perhaps you like to listen and you want some examples of what it could visually look like. You can definitely check out the YouTube playlist. We have several video tutorials on the topics that we cover in these handouts, and they're easily accessible in all of these three ways. And now we're going to move on to Grammarly EDU, which in addition to the other sources, both the virtual and the in-person print copies available to y'all, we can also help you set up your Grammarly Grammarly.edu account. Anyone with an EPCC email can create the Grammarly EDU account. However, sometimes students do struggle to do this, in which case you can obviously come to your respective center to get assistance in person. You can go online, or you can also ask these questions when you're during the session. You don't have to have that account created already. We can help you create it afterwards as well. And it does have to be the EDU Grammarly, which stands for the education, right? This means that anything that you would get for Grammarly Pro will be available to you, but that is why it's important for you to use your EPC's email so that they can know that it is a school account. So how do we access these virtual sources, right? Well, once again, through our awesome website, but this time it will be epcc.edu/services/writing center, which once again, they are available to the community through the EPCC library as well. And for that, you would go to https://www.epcc.edu/services/libraries. Our YouTube videos lessons are also accessible through the YouTube by clicking on the Writing Center videos as well. So now I will pass it over to my really amazing colleague Soshi, and she will keep telling you all about our amazing resources and availability of all the centers. Thank you.
Thank you, Nemesis. Okay, so Grammarly, right? To be able to set up an account for Grammarly EDU, you'll need your name, your EPCC email, and also to create a password that you will remember. And you can also find the link in the resources that we previously provided, or it's also at http://www.grammarly.com/edu/signup. You can also obviously visit us in person. We are located in VV Valverde A 1425. Monday through Thursday, we are open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. However, Friday, we are open at 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Our in-person resources. We offer handouts. These are some handouts our tutors have created to help students in understanding writing concept and skills. We have these printed out in the center as well. We also offer textbooks. We have a section of textbooks that are required in many literature courses for students' use, including a writer's reference, which is a great resource for learning about various citation formats. We have a little thing going at the Writing Center, take a book, leave a book. Our little free library has books that you can read in the center or be taken to add to your own library. We're always accepting new donations. At our other campuses, we also offer Writing Center help. At Mission, Northwest, Rio Grande, and Trans Mountain, they do have different operating times. So they are offered and shown on our website. Also here with Mission Del Paso, they're open Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Room E111. Northwest is open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And Tuesday and Thursdays are open 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. Room A104. Rio Grande, they're open Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Room B403. Trans Mountain, they're open Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And Tuesday and Thursdays, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Room 1200. Some of our upcoming workshops, one that's coming up on April 8th is Give Credit Where It's Due, a guide to citing sources, right? And it's from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. And y'all can also join us virtually through the link. And our next one that is happening on May 6th on a Wednesday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. is based on writing to unwind de-stressing events. It's hybrid, so you can both do it online and in person at the Valladolid Writing Center A 1425. Frequently asked questions. Can I drop off my essay? No, our sessions are collaborative with students and aim to help students strengthen their skills. We do not allow essays to be dropped off or emailed, right? Because they have to be one-on-one sessions with the students who can visit the Writing Center. Our services are available for EPCC students, faculty, staff, and people of the community. Does my essay need to be completed for a session? No. You're more than welcome to visit us at any point in your writing process for brainstorming or to do your final edits. Do I need to work with a tutor to visit the Writing Center? No. You're more than welcome to work on your own and use your computers and print documents. You can contact us at EPCCWC at epc.edu, and our phone number is 915-831-2149, and you can visit us in person at Valle Verde, Building A, 1425. Is there any questions?
All right. At this time, I don't see any questions in the chat, but if you should have one, you can either raise your hand or put it into the chat. I'd like to take a moment to thank Ms. Salinas and Ms. Rodriguez for presenting on behalf of the Writing Center, and again to Mr. John Estrada for presenting for us on behalf of the Center for Students with Disabilities. So before I let you go, let me go ahead and invite you to next week's sessions. So next week we'll be back on March 13th, our 11 for Happy Math Hour at 11 a.m. For Math 1332, we'll be covering arithmetic in different bases and prime numbers. In Math 2412, we'll be going over an exam review too. And then for our 1 p.m. session in this very room for student success topics, we will have EPCC counseling with us with Oscar Velasquez. We'd like to take a moment to thank you all for joining us today, and we hope you have a wonderful weekend. Bye, everyone.